much for tuning into the WTCF podcast. It's Charlie here, hanging out at work, and decided to slip away during lunch to go ahead and knock out a bit of the intention from last week and kind of what I've learned from it and kind of what I saw. So, this past week, the intention was you cannot foresee the consequences for all of your actions, but that is not an excuse to do nothing. The idea behind it is that we still have the ability to find and maintain control over certain aspects of our life. And in those moments that we do have control, it is our responsibility to go ahead and do the right thing. So even if the consequences themselves aren't going to be in our favor, that it could be a negative thing, that we would still go ahead and try to do the right thing regardless. And it can be really difficult to go ahead and do that. Now, why? No one wants to be put down, felt to be negative, or any of those other negative connotations. Nobody wants that stuff. However, I look at that as an opportunity to say, well, this is just one day of my life. This is a really good learning opportunity for the next things that I get myself involved into. So maybe on another day, I'll be more prepared with more information to be able to do the right thing. And knowing that continually doing the right thing and showing myself as doing the right thing as often as I can is hopefully going to build some integrity with who I am as a person. And someone, when they go ahead and say, hey, this person does this, that I do that thing. That is what I wish to be. So as I went ahead and went through this last week, um, you can't foresee the consequences for all your actions. So as we go through everything that we do, I think a lot of us will get scared about what we have to go ahead and accomplish, or feel that a hurdle is too much, an obstacle is too difficult to get around. And instead of taking those moments and trying to reflect and come up with some new creative ideas, what do I have control over in these moments? What other resources can I go ahead and have? Can I ask for help on some of these things? And we just go ahead and say, well, I can't do it. So I'm not, it's somebody else's fault that I can't do it. It's not my fault at all that it can't be done. And I think that's lackluster. I think when we're responsible for the things that we do, we have to go ahead and take ownership of it. So, for example, this last week, I made a mistake. So, one of my refs didn't show up to a game. And it was really important that they were there because other people could have done it, or I could have prepped a little bit more. So, an individual went ahead and said, I'll take the game, and then didn't show, even though I saw them earlier that day. So, really bothered by that one. Um, so, I know that there's going to be consequences for that coming back from the rest of the league. So I had that ref chew me out. I went and outed myself to the rest of the board saying, hey, I made this mistake. This is what I learned from it. This is how we're going to go ahead and approach it. And I might have to have disciplinary actions towards this individual. I just need to know what happened. And most likely what I'm going to get, again, this is speculation, so I can't guarantee anything, is that I'm going to get some nonsense back. Something that it's somebody else's fault that I couldn't do it. Right. My phone was on me. If I would have got a message of any kind, I could have contacted somebody else at the field to go ahead and help out. But now we look worse as a league, and we look bad. I look bad for all of this. And the right thing to go ahead and do is to make sure that I can create these backups and maybe allow these people to feel comfortable enough to go ahead and address it. Because for all I know, that he was just too scared to tell me that he couldn't do it. So he figured that if he just disappeared, that would solve the problem. So those moments do exist, and they can be really, really difficult to overcome. So I will look at a lot of the moments through my own life and say, okay, well, I can't foresee the consequences, but you know what? I need to do something. I have the ability and the control to do something, even if that something is not close to my best, but I can do something. I can fix something. I can work towards something. I can ask for help. Go ahead and do it. There's nothing wrong with asking for additional support. But one of the worst things that we can go ahead and do is start to point the finger at everything else and say, well, I couldn't do it because this happened. Oh, I can't do that because this thing happened. Well, what could you have started in that process to alleviate that from somebody else? Again, to ask for help and say, well, hey, you know what? I can't do 100% of this thing, but I can do 20% of it and pass it on and give somebody a little less to work with, or a little bit more to work with. Pardon my phrasing on that one. But to give them the additional support to make it a little bit easier, again, to move forward and continuously do those things. So whether it comes to your work in an office or your day-to-day life, one of the worst things that you can do is just turn around and start blaming everybody else and say, well, it's so and so's fault that I can't do it. That's a lousy excuse to me. Because if someone got in your way, how did you try to work with that person? How did you try to resolve it by something you can control? You can control how you interact with other individuals. You can choose the words that you go ahead and use with that other individual. You can choose the resources that you go ahead and go for. And again, not every resource is going to be available all the time, but we do have plenty of options to go ahead and start. And again, asking for help is helpful. So hopefully what I can get into as my new week comes on and my new intention shows up, that I can continue to take a few minutes and share some of this information. And maybe it's something that will actually help you kind of get through your day, your week, your month, your year, whatever. And I want to still keep these really, really short. So hopefully that's something that can be, beneficial to you, and know that you can't foresee everything. You know what? If we are able to do that, hell, I would have been a millionaire, billionaire several times over by now if I already knew all this stuff. But I don't. And I'm not going to go ahead and start blaming other things that are outside of my control, saying it's their fault that I can't do it. No, it's within me and my reflection of self, and saying, well, how do I view the importance of my own life? And say, well, what can I do to help myself? How can I help my thought process? So hopefully that helps you. And on that note, good luck.